family? Welcome to the Kathy Paige Experience Strong Women series. I am here with my beautiful mother, Pastor Kathy Paige, and she is here to talk about a very hard topic, but one that so many women have faced, may even be dealing with right now, the healing process, and that's of miscarriage. We probably aren't even aware of how many women actually have miscarried at least once. Many have miscarried multiple times, and that's your story.
It is.
And so just share with us a little bit about your first miscarriage.
Oh my God. Tam, to my surprise, it was, first of all, I didn't even realize that I was pregnant. And it was okay, you know how you feel a little different, things just aren't absolutely the norm. And so I happened to have to go for an appointment, and they're like, well, you're experiencing some of these symptoms because you're expecting. And I'm like, expecting as in with child? And it's like, yeah, that would be your story right now. And so of course, all the excitement came rushing in, and oh my God, oh, I'm expecting. What do you do with this? What is it, a girl? Is it a boy? I mean, just the hype of everything. So I went home to tell my husband at the time. He seemed a little excited about it, but then still in that place of, okay, well, what do we do with this kind of attitude? But as time progressed and went on, I ended up losing the child. And it was in my second month that I began to, show evidence that something wasn't right. And then when I went back to be examined for it, the pregnancy was no longer there. And so, then you go through the DNA or DNC, not the DNA, but the DNC process, which, emotionally, it caught me by surprise. However, I had to work through it, but I'm like, okay, I'm gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. So it's the first. I can try again. I mean, didn't know that I was, but we'll try again. And the doctor actually said to me, she's like, well, this may not have been a successful one, but go and practice again. And I was like, well, that's a way of looking at it, which I did not. But it's like, okay, well, I'll do just that then. But for me, I wanted to have a planned pregnancy, if you will. But I said, okay, Lord, well, it's your will that if it's here, it's for me to journey on track and nurture and do everything. But when it was not a successful one, it was kind of a hit for me to come. But then I held on to the fact that I can try again.
So what did that look like when you tried again? What did that look like in the future?
Well, as I said, that I wanted planned pregnancies. In my case, none of them were planned. However, my second one was also another vaginal miscarriage, due to no fault of my own. And of course, it seemed like it was always when I went to go get examined because I wasn't feeling well, something was going on, that I would find out that I was with child. And so the second one here again also was a failed pregnancy, and that one actually was at the latter part of my second month going into the third. And so, of course, they tell you about the first trimester, be careful, get rest, get lots of fluids and everything like that. So to me, once I found out, I began to take those steps to do what I needed to do to make sure that I covered the unborn child, my unborn child at the time. And so as time kept going on, it just, something just didn't feel right. And so that would always be my plight, as not feeling right, because for the most part, your body. And even though it was making the adjustment to the pregnancy itself, it still didn't feel right. So here again, losing it and then having to go through the DNC again. So I'm like, okay, well, I can try again. I'm still hearing that voice in the back. Well, just try again. So I began to pray and ask the Lord, let me have a planned pregnancy, if you will. I want it to be something that the both of us are in agreement with and that we want to do. And so I'm like, okay, maybe it will be. But then when the third time came around is when I began to experience it being an ectopic pregnancy. An ectopic pregnancy is totally different from having just a vaginal miscarriage. And many of you may know or you may not know, but that is one that really, really was a challenge for me. Especially when they gave me the news that it could be fatal.
Yeah.
And I did not find that out until I was actually there. And that one felt different than the other times. And I remember lying in the hospital on the bed after I left work and ended up going to the emergency room because I was having some excruciating pain. And I'm like, this is just not normal. So when I get there, I was at Washington Hospital Center. This was the third. And I said, well, something's going on. And so then they began to rush and the lady came back and she's like, how long have you been feeling this? And what's going on now? I said, well, I just want some for pain because this felt different. And of course, they can't give you pain medication because then it will alter what you're feeling. Am I being able to respond and tell them if I had to go from 1 to 10, how would I explain this pain? And so I remember the nurse coming over to me and holding my hand, and she says, we're going to have to rush you through some things because with an ectopic pregnancy, that's not safe for you because it could be fatal. And so that was my first time ever hearing that and not even realizing the severity of the pregnancy itself. So I went through all of that and okay, Lord, well, you say 3, okay, what we gonna do with this? But it certainly did force me to trust him even the more. But it just kind of made things a little more complicated for me to deal with from the perspective of just being pregnant and will I ever be able to hold a child? So that was it. So, but I had to, and I'm just grateful for how God sustained me during those times and how he brought me into the awareness of knowing that he really was protecting me because I was just going about my business, doing what I do from a day-to-day basis, but I knew that there was something different going on inside of my body.
And so did you know the reasons, or did the doctors ever tell you?
We did exams and tests, and because I wanted to get answers, and I remember us doing an HSG test, which is where they insert the dye into you, and then they look at it from a broader scope, and they were like, well, your tubes are not blocked, so we really don't know. I mean, and as much as I inquired of the doctors and of the Lord, because I really wanted to know at this point, especially after the third one, but the exams and the tests that they performed, they didn't bring back the results that we really were looking for, at least what I was looking for, because I wanted answers. I don't know, for some reason, I think it probably would have made me feel better if they had given me something, then I can just associate it with, oh, that is it, pinpoint it. That's the reason why this is not happening. But when you don't have those answers, for me, it was extremely challenging.
I can imagine that, because I think that whether you blame yourself or you want to blame something else, it's just like, I need to have a reason so I can say this is the reason why, because as a woman, I think that a lot of times when we can't physically go through the entire pregnancy, we feel like, well, this is the part I'm supposed to play. The guy already plays that part. This is the part I'm supposed to play. This is what my body was made to do. So what's wrong with me? Why can't I do it? My part for this, not realizing that it's not your fault. It doesn't make you less of a woman, because sometimes women feel like it makes them less of a woman. So that's big. Sometimes there's no medical cause. There is nothing that you can just pinpoint and say this is it. But one thing's for sure, what it's not is that it's not your fault. Exactly. It's not your fault. So that's good. And how has these losses, because you told us about the first 3, but how many miscarriages have you had?
7 total.
7 miscarriages.
Yes, 3 were vaginal and 4 were ectopic pregnancies.
Wow.
And I think the last one was the one that really, really, it was like that moment as in, oh my God, the Lord really has kept me. And at this time, I'm married to Dad.
Yes.
Okay, so, and, I said, something's going on, and oh my God, it just didn't feel well. And I don't know, there's that shortness of breath that comes immediately, just an excruciating pain that comes up, hits you like right in the middle. And so he said, well, you need to go to the emergency. I said, well, let me just lie down and rest, and I'm gonna be okay. And if I don't feel well in the morning, I promise, babe, I'll go. And so I ended up resting because I didn't know, but I said, I just want to make sure that I'm okay. The next morning, I slept in, and I got up and I went downstairs, and we had guests that was at the house that stayed overnight. And I went to the refrigerator to open it up. And when I went to open it up, it was like, pow. There was that feeling again. And I'm like, whoa. But then this time I began to bleed. And so I was, oh my God. And something's not going well. And so I called downstairs to tell Dad what was going on. We were on Queen Street. And so I said, well, hey, this just happened. And he's like, well, you need to go. I got a client in my chair, but I need you to go now. And when you get downstairs, then I said, well, let me take a shower. Let me clean up. Let me do what I need to do. I don't want to go. You know how we feel. Sometimes we want to get clean before we even go to the doctors. And so I went to do that. And the pain got a little bit more painful. And so by the time I got over, I convinced him to let me dress and go and try. I'll try myself over there. I'll call you as soon as I get there and everything. And so drove over to the hospital, and I'm sitting there and I'm telling them my history, and I'm telling them what's going on now. And she's like, well, where's your pain? I said, it's about a 10. Where's it at? I said, this is a 10. And when those hits come, that jumps over to 20. To me, it feels like. And I am one whose pain tolerance is very high, very high. Yes. And so, I know how to muster, to breathe, and to get through those and be in that moment, but never let on that I'm in that moment. And so when they began to look at my chart and hear the history and everything, then everything just went to like, we got to get her back, hurry. Blah, blah, blah. So everything went into fast pace, if you will. And so I said, okay, Lord, I'm not sure what this is that's going on, but I trust that you have it. I know that you do. And this was the first Dr. Tam that ever really talked to me about what was going on. I knew that I had discovered developed a lot of scar tissue. So I even try to put it on that, I got scar tissue there. So maybe that's creating it. And so he says, listen, they brought me back in the room, and I called Dad and told him, I'm like, listen, you might want to come, because I don't know what's going on, but you may want to come. And so he sat down in the room, and I was bearing through the pain, because I'm going to get through this. I'm a strong woman. That's who I am. Yes. And so I'm sitting there in the wheelchair, and he's standing before us, and he says, he says, you have found favor because you should be dead. Wow. So you should be dead. That will forever be etched on my heart by the explanations, by the care, but also what I was in the middle of, watching other women. Because when I had to go home and recover after the surgery, people knew that, okay, Kathy didn't show up, what's going on? And so they knew my story. So when I had to return, that's when the real challenges.
So that's when the challenges. And what did that look like when you had to see other women that were pregnant, or even other mothers with children? How did that make you feel? I was okay, and had been all down through the years, because I knew how to, it's like you go into that self-preservation mode, even sometimes when you don't realize that you're there. I had god babies, I loved on everybody else's children because they loved me back. Yeah. But this time it was very, very hard, because, like I said, we had a little group of women that were pregnant, and one of them was one of my friends that asked me to be her godmother to her child. And so the relationship just kind of
went to the left, She never inquired anymore. She didn't even call while I was recovering. And of course, years later, we had conversation around it. And she said she just didn't know how to be with me anymore. And I said, but don't you know that your baby gave me joy? Yeah. I just lost mine. Yes, I did. However, but just the mere fact that you trusted me enough to be God parent to yours was something that I held on to, that helped me. And I tried to reach out to talk to some of my friends, the ones that were expecting, but they were not available. And most of them, when we had those conversations, I got the response, I just didn't know how to be with you. So I've learned that if you're not careful when you're offended at something or someone, that opens up the door for rejection, jealousy, envy, looking at them differently than you once did. So I sat down from the front line, for just a little bit to kind of regroup. And then I found myself in this place of falsity, as in, oh, that doesn't bother me. No, I'm just moving right along, because I wasn't dare going to share my heart with you because you've not been available. Yeah. And just instead of nurturing and helping me to know that it's okay, and then even celebrate with you, because celebrating with you will help me to overcome my insecurities, my fears, my challenges that I'm dealing with. But to shut down on me completely really just made me feel rejected.
Yeah, maybe you haven't dealt with miscarriage, but you have dealt with that. Maybe you have been that woman. You've been a friend of someone who's had a miscarriage, or an associate, or just around them, whether it's work or in ministry, and you don't know what to do. You can hear their heart. You may not always have the right words to say. Anytime there's trauma, anytime something happens that hurts someone, we don't always have the perfect words to say, because the truth is there aren't ever perfect words to say. But don't push them away. Just be who you are, be the friend, be the loved one that you are, because they need you.
Absolutely.
And you never know what about you or your children will help them to heal.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so I know you shared a little bit about your first marriage, and some responses or reactions may have been negative, which have affected you, but then also, you married Dad, and so some of your miscarriages were with Dad. How did it affect your marriage with Dad?
Dad was such a gentle, graceful angel to me. It helped him to understand the dynamics of a woman going through these things, and it made him more supportive, longing to care for me in that way. I think he really, really heard my heart, and in those times, it truly brought us closer together. I love the fact that he never looked at me indifferently. Never did. Never made me feel that I was less than, anything like that. And as a matter of fact, I think he became more heightened in his sensitivities, became more heightened in serving me, if you will. Serving me as in being there, praying over me, laying hands on me, emotionally ministering to me. And that was one of the biggest things that I desired at that time. He was the knight in shining armor that God used to help me to hold on and to know that even still, it's gonna be all right.
Wow. So what steps did you take to walk through the healing process? I know some may have had counseling, spiritual counsel. What did that look like for you?
It was a number of things, Tam. It was hard for me to push through at first because I had so much to overcome in my head. But I think one of the greatest tools that came through a counselor was, she said, it's okay to take time to grieve the loss of your children. And she asked me the question, have you named them? That was foreign because, okay, well, I didn't even know the sex of them, let alone did I name them. But something like broke when she asked me that question, because they were people, they were children. So I said to her, no, I haven't. And she said, well, I want you to go home this day, name your children, talk to them, love on them, even write a letter to them if you need to do that. So I went and I sat with Alyssa, Bethany, Monty, Dion, Kendall the third, and then I had Jeremiah, and I had Melissa. And God, in that moment, was so gracious to me to sit with them and honor them. And then it was my friend, another friend, who's a counselor, but really we weren't sitting down for counseling. We were just sitting down to share. And I think I was talking to her about just children in general, because her daughter was getting ready to get married. I don't really remember the details of the conversation. However, she stopped and she said, wait a minute. So Isaiah 54 is for you? Sing, O barren woman, sing, for you are going to be given children more than that of a married woman.
Wow.
And so in that moment, it just kind of leapt within me as, okay, because even as it has been said to me before, you're going to be a mother of nations, you know? And I said, oh my God. So I began to look at that even more and realize that when I begin to see it through God's lenses, they may not have come through my loins, but they're going to come through my loins. And so just looking at it from His perspective, walking it out, first naming my children, looking at it from His perspective, and then taking the courage to walk it out and genuinely celebrate with others. It helped me when those hard times would come.
Wow. I'm so proud of you, Mama. Thank you for sharing your story. I would like if you would just share, and there may be someone that has dealt with miscarriage and is walking through the healing process. It may have been a long time ago and still not knowing, what can I do to heal? How do I walk through this? Because I'm sure it's a constant thing that you're constantly healing. You're constantly seeing something else that you're like, or something may happen and it's just like, wow, I didn't realize. And just finding the root of the situation and seeing it, going back to that. But what would you say to a woman that has dealt with miscarriage, whether it's one miscarriage or multiple miscarriages? What would you say to her?
Wow. Beautiful. You are. I would say continue to pray, cry out to God, for we don't always have the answers. We don't always know what and why. But hold on to Him. Be okay with grieving. Allow yourself the room to grieve. Don't allow someone to tell you that, listen, you need to get over that. No, because you get over it in your own time. God is the one to heal you in every broken place. And I would encourage you to please hold on, because His plans for you, they're to prosper you and they're to keep you in good health, even as your soul prospers. You don't know what the plans are. You don't know the jewels, the treasures that He may have for you later in life. But hold on and allow yourself to grieve the way that He would have you to grieve. And talk to your child. Name your child. Journal about them. It's okay to even visualize what you would have done with them. Yes. It's okay. And it's okay to not be okay. But just continue to press forward and allow God to heal you in those broken places. And I promise you, you won't be disappointed, because hope does not disappoint. I have evidence.
Yes, thank you, Mom. Thank you for sharing with us. And I know you may see our t-shirts that we have on today. The BOLD Resilience Foundation, thanks to Hilari Seegears. She sent these shirts to us for her foundation. It says, unshakable faith, unbreakable trust.
Yes.
And Mom, do you want to let them know
Oh my
about her
God.
foundation?
Yes, Miss Hilari is amazing with what has been given to her to help women who have experienced miscarriages. For we know that not everyone has insurance and you may incur expenses along the way. Well, it was placed upon her heart to build this foundation for those that are in need of finances to help them to cover those expenses. We're so grateful for what God has done in Hilari and that she is making these resources available to us. The information is going to be provided for you that you can go to her website and visit the resources that she has available that can be a blessing to you.
Definitely check out the website, and even if you may not need those resources, but also be a blessing to her ministry. She is going to have a book coming out, so please follow her Facebook and check out her website. She has her own merch, and just support someone who is doing amazing things for women. Hilari, thank you. We are so proud of you,
Yes, we are.
and we want to do what we can to support you and your foundation. Again, I just pray that you have received something from this episode. Thank you for joining us, and I hope that you join us next week. Remember, these are real women, real stories, real power, Mama.
Yes.
Thank you.